And dun 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 dun. I don't know the words. Oh wait, there are words. Just music. Hello and welcome to Torn Book Club.
Hello.
Eve is back with us today, and she will be back with us again next week for Harry Potter. So
you're never getting rid of me.
No, you're here for good. So, welcome to our first episode of Literary Franchise Month, where we are going to be talking about all the big movies and TV shows that have come from books and what they all mean.
For better or for worse.
Yeah, how good the adaptations have been or how bad they have been, and we're going to focus on a couple of the really big ones. So this week we're talking about Game of Thrones because the season 4 premiere is tonight. Yay! Super excited.
So excited.
I've been having a weekend-long marathon of season 3 here at my home with a bunch of friends. You were here for it yesterday. We got through half of season 3 yesterday, which we'd seen before, but it's so much weirder seeing it like one after another as opposed to week.
Yeah.
Because this is a show where there is so much packed into one episode that it goes by like that, and you're like, oh god, I need to wait a week for more. But before we get too deep into Game of Thrones, we have a new book of the month, first of all, and I know what we were trying to do was to find what will be the next big literary franchise, what will be the next big crossover, and there were a lot of good suggestions from everybody, and I was doing a lot of research on my own, and finally came up with one that we haven't talked about. I figured, you know what, I'm going to surprise everybody, not go with one that we've been talking about. So, oh, you got a little compliment from Jan there. Jan says, last show with Genevieve was awesome, and yes, it was.
Thank you.
And so we have a new, I totally forgot what I was talking about. Book of the month.
The book of the month.
The book of the month.
Surprise
So yes, we were talking about some things like The Maze Runner, or Miss Peregrine, which is getting a Tim Burton movie in 2015.
Starring Johnny Depp?
As who?
I don't know.
Yeah, as
somebody.
The dad, I guess. I don't know.
They'll find a way.
Yeah, they'll find a way. But what I ultimately went with, partly because it's getting its own TV show treatment later this year, which I think could actually do pretty well. It also has a little bit of a connection to the Hobbit movies because it was written by the guy who was going to direct the Hobbit movies at first. And I Stole the One Ring is here. Hello, I Stole the One Ring. So you're here just in time. I'm about to announce the book of the month, and it is The Strain by Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan. And I chose this one specifically because it's getting a TV show treatment on FX later this year. They've been very hush-hush about showing footage from the show. So I'm curious to see where it goes. It's a trilogy. All 3 books are out now. And this is the first one. And it's basically about a vampire virus that takes over the world. So it's kind of like The Walking Dead meets a good vampire story, not Twilight. But it's also Guillermo del Toro.
What week are we talking about Twilight?
Oh, we're not. I mean,
there's so much to say.
I know Twilight is kind of the elephant in the room with this theme. It's like, yeah, it was a big book series. Yeah, it was a big movie series, but do we really need to talk about it?
Anyway.
So
Temple wants to. I think Temple wants to talk about it.
Oh, I don't know. So But I decided to go with The Strain because it's written by Guillermo del Toro, who was originally supposed to be the director for The Hobbit before it got mired in all sorts of legal controversies, and they had to put it off and put it off and put it off until finally he was like, you know what, I've got Pacific Rim to do. You go figure your own thing out. And you know what? We got Pacific Rim out of it, so I really can't complain. Jan is saying, I saw Jennifer wouldn't join today
Oh, yeah,
because she was
so
going to
Jennifer.
watch Captain America. Yes, unfortunately, Jennifer, Light of the King, is not going to be here today because she's going to see Captain America too.
I saw it last night. It's awesome.
It's great.
It's awesome. Go see it.
So, so,
Much love for Captain America.
yes, Captain America was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, that's why I had to wear my my patriotic earrings today.
Oh,
Not my
nice.
Game of Thrones T-shirt, but my Captain America.
Nice. Yeah, I wore my Game of Thrones T-shirt yesterday, so now I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt because why not?
I might have worn one of my other 4 Game of Thrones T-shirts yesterday.
I only have one because I'm awful.
No. Going to Game of Thrones panels at Comic-Con helps acquire T-shirts.
Yeah, it would. I don't have the patience for it.
Yeah.
I can't sit in a line at Comic-Con. I just can't do it.
Just bring lots of friends and card games.
And Temple is saying, someone is too excited about season 4 to speak. That's quite right. I'm also quite tired. After the 5-hour marathon of Game of Thrones yesterday, I then went to a birthday party until 2 in the morning. So I'm quite tired. So again,
Strain.
So The Strain, I've never read it.
I haven't either.
I've heard it's good. I'm definitely curious about it. I love Del Toro's imagination. So I'm curious to see what he does with this kind of concept. And who knows, maybe it'll turn into a good show. So that's the book of the month, and then we also have Rewrite Tolkien. And this month it was Douglas Adams, and we do have a winner. And the winner is... come on, technology, don't fail me now. It is Untitled by J.J. Lendy. And it's really sort of a little bit of a prologue to The Hobbit, written in the style of Douglas Adams.
I haven't read this one yet. I'm excited.
Yes, I've been going over it to get it into my brain so that I can read this without going, what?
Douglas Adams style writing can have that effect.
It really can. You really need to work at it when you're saying it out loud because it's so incredibly verbose, or it can be. So, without further ado, let's do our Douglas Adams winner for Rewrite Tolkien. Somewhere in the recesses of history, before the advent of iPhones, ebooks, or any other memorabilia beginning with a lowercase vowel, but before the beginnings of life on the planet, whether you believe life began with the great music of the Ainur, with creatures coming out of the sea and into trees, or with one man's unwitting donation of his own rib, there existed a world of magic, quests, and a fair amount of questionable jewelry. The world was known to its inhabitants as Middle-earth, though no one there seemed to know or care what exactly it was the middle of, or if they should be at all concerned about that highly suspect name. This land, Middle-earth, plodded along for quite some time with a fair amount of drama. The many deceits of the evil Ainur known as Melkor, the sinking of the great city of Numenor and the bending of the world, the last great alliance of elves and men and the forces of evil against the forces of evil in Mordor, and the final defeat of the Dark Lord Sauron by plunging his One Ring into the fires of Mount Doom. This is not any of those stories. But this is a story that involves a mountain, along with a healthy number of elves, a fairly magical wizard, and a staggering amount of walking around. It does not, however, include any Dark Lords or places nicknamed Doom. So, if that's the kind of thing you go in for, then best to close this book and save your time from a rather disappointing perusal and the publishers of this book from a negative review on Goodreads. However, if you are not overly obsessed with stories that culminate in a high-profile rescue of the entire world from the forces of evil and have continued reading it, it might interest you to know that this book is chiefly about a rather oddly named chap named Bilbo, who is in fact no taller than your average kindergartner. In fact, this book has quite a few pine-sized characters and villains, some of them called hobbits, like Bilbo, who have who have the same basic interests as the stoner who lived across the hall from you at the university. Some of them are called dwarves, who are more obsessed with digging in the ground than even the most avid gopher. And one particularly strange creature named Gollum, who is exactly as awkward looking as his name would suggest. And while this might not sound nearly as exciting as a story with words like Dark Lord and Doom, where the entire fate of the world is hanging in the balance, it scores over that particular book in two rather important respects. First, it's much shorter, which makes it cheaper to purchase and faster to go through. The second, it's one of the only books you'll read this year that features a talking dragon. But the story of the pine-sized hobbit named Bilbo, the story of his quest that doesn't involve the end of the world, and the story of how that quest becomes inextricably intertwined with the lives of dwarves and elves and a talking dragon begins very simply. It begins with a hole in the ground. The end. So that is our entry for Rewrite Tolkien.
That was good.
I liked it. There were a lot of really fun entries this month, but that one definitely took the cake.
Yeah.
And there are a couple runners-up posted on the One Ring if you want to read some more of Douglas Adamsy goodness. So Rewrite Tolkien will not be happening this month in April because basically all the judges are really busy right now. It's con season. A lot of us are gearing up for WonderCon in a few weeks. We're all very busy with our jobs, with our actual day jobs. So we're going to take a month off, and we're actually going to move Rewrite Tolkien from every month to every other month. So there won't be a contest this month. There will, however, be one in May, and we'll let you know what the theme is then. So, on to Game of Thrones. So, I was trying to figure out the best way to start this discussion. I think what we need to do is sort of give everybody a little baseline knowledge about the world in which this story takes place.
Okay, and I see. Just to get it clarified, what's our spoiler policy for this discussion?
Okay, our spoiler policy here
I see we've got some people in the room who haven't read or seen.
Yeah, there are a couple
There will be
here.
spoilers.
We're going to try to keep the spoilers to a minimum. We're going to be a little bit more free and open with stuff that's happened on the show, which takes us roughly about halfway through book 3. Anything beyond that, we're going to get much more vague. But to start with, we should talk a little bit about the history of this world so that people can understand the world of Game of Thrones and the world of Westeros, for those who haven't become utterly obsessed with it yet. I stress yet.
Yeah.
So, basically, this takes place in a world called Westeros, or I should say Westeros is the name of one continent in this world. And it's divided into 7 kingdoms, which now are really more like fiefdoms than kingdoms, I would say. Because they're all unified under the big king, who is really just called the king.
Yes. One king, many lords.
Yes. I Stole the One Ring is saying, so no mentioning who dies. Well,
everyone. Or just
everyone dies. Yeah. Yeah, nobody is safe. George R. R. Martin is a psychopath. So we might talk a little bit about some of the bigger deaths that have happened in the show that you probably know about just from having learned about the story or learned about the show at all. Like why Sean Bean is only in season 1 and not seasons 2 and 3.
Spoilers.
um, so uh, so we have the Seven Kingdoms. What is that? Too late for me. Save yourselves. I've gone to the dark side and love it. So we have the king, and I'd like to talk a little bit about where the king comes from because where this story picks up is actually, I'd say, like about 10, 20 years after a very major war.
Yeah, in the books it's about 14 years after. In the
Okay.
series it's got to be about 17 years after because
Yeah.
Jon Snow and Robb were born during Robert's rebellion.
Right.
So their age is the length of time since the
Right.
the rebellion.
So yeah, it's roughly about 15, 17 years after this major, big, game-changing war that happened in the world. Because for I think what it was about 300 years, something like that.
I don't remember exactly how long, but quite a few generations.
Yeah, a number of generations. It was ruled by one family, and that family are called the Targaryens. And the Targaryens were basically the big badasses of the world because they knew how to ride and control dragons. And they set up their dynasty in Westeros with one king who was known as Aegon. And he basically came over from their homeland of Valyria with his dragons and proceeded to conquer all of Westeros. And what he did was he created, he basically pulled a Genghis Khan, like unification through conquest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his army was smaller, they were losing the war, and then he and his sisters swooped in on their dragons and just wiped the ground with everybody.
And Suzanne is here. Hello, Suzanne.
Hi, Suzanne.
And so yeah, they swoop in, take over, and then establish themselves as the rulers and build something called the Iron Throne, which is a throne that is made out of the swords of everybody Aegon has defeated. And it seems like a very painful throne to sit on.
Yes. Well, I think it's deeply, deeply symbolic in that way.
Yes.
Everyone seems to want this chair, but no one seems to fare very well once they're sitting in it.
Yeah.
So.
But for the Iron Throne, actually, we've noticed a fun little Easter egg. Apparently, Glamdring, Gandalf's sword from Lord of the Rings, is in the Iron Throne.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to look now.
Yeah, a bunch of they posted some stuff online, and then a bunch of us started scrutinizing high-res pictures of the Iron Throne, and sure enough, Glamdring is right there,
Nice.
right in the center. There were a couple others. There are a couple other swords. I think there's a Robin Hood sword in there.
Oh, okay.
I think I saw Excalibur, but I'm not sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is very cool.
So basically, for hundreds of years, the Targaryens have ruled Westeros, and then Robert's Rebellion happened.
Right, because as well as being able to control dragons, the Targaryens' other thing is they have the bad habit of marrying their own siblings, a lot.
Like a lot.
Like that's all they'll do
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want to thin the bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
So after a certain point, they got kind of crazy. And then we have the one who is known as the Mad King.
Yes, King Aerys, the Mad King, and that's where this comes in because he had a son named Rhaegar, who fell in love with a woman, or I don't know if he fell in love with her so much as he became obsessed with her.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember the woman's name to save my life. What?
Do you want to?
I don't know.
Lyanna?
Was it Lyanna?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. And she was had she actually married Robert Baratheon, or?
Oh no, Robert was going to marry her.
Yeah, she was betrothed to.
The Baratheons being one of the other major noble houses.
Right. And so, but Rhaegar decided he was going to take Lyanna for himself, and so he did.
Rhaegar, who was already married and had 2 other children of his own.
Exactly.
But
But that's what he does.
hmm
Um,
So this sort of kicked off this rebellion, where basically the kings hadn't been doing so well recently anyway. So the town with it was very easy to spark this thing. This was just
Yeah.
kind of the event that sparked the
and
rebellion.
Aerys was not very well liked anyway. He's called the Mad King for a reason. He was insane.
He liked to kill people.
Yes.
I think it was probably Jaime Lannister who was saying that that Aerys liked to do terrible things to his enemies, and after a certain point, he
Yeah.
thought everyone was his enemies.
Yeah. There was a big thing with. There was still a big thing with. What's his name? Ned Stark,
Mhm.
and how Aerys basically tortured and killed his father and brother right in front of him in the throne room.
Mm-hmm.
In a very brutal fashion. Like I think he set his father on fire, and while Ned was watching, and then tied up Ned with with a kind of noose that was just far enough away that he couldn't get to him to save him. Yeah.
He would though. He was crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
so Robert and Ned got together and decided it was time somebody else was king of Westeros,
yeah.
and most of the countryside followed them.
Yes. And so then the rebellion happened, and that's when this fracturing of all these unified kingdoms started happening, because ultimately Robert overthrew King Aerys and established himself as the new king. And then everybody started jockeying for unseating him.
Right.
And Suzanne is saying, oh, so it's a traditional family thing, so that's okay. They're just following tradition.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so where the story picks up is roughly about 17 years after that. Robert is now king. He's a terrible king. Like he's not like an evil king. He's just fat and lazy and stupid.
Yeah, pretty much what they say is he was a good man and a very good warrior. He was a good leader, but he's not a good king because he has no patience for the paperwork and the ruling of the kingdom. He just
Yeah.
wants to be out there.
Yeah.
And being stuck trying to do all the deal with the minutia and deal with the politics has turned him into a lazy, slobbery, not very useful king.
Yeah. He loves his drinking and he loves his women's.
Yes, and he married for alliance, and he and his wife despise each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a good situation.
Right. So that brings us to the Lannisters. The Lannisters are the other big house who is part of this rebellion, and the patriarch of House Lannister, Tywin, I think he was the hand of the king to King Aerys, I believe, and he has a son and he has 2 sons and a daughter. His sons are Jaime and Tyrion, and his daughter is Cersei.
Mm-hmm.
And his oldest son Jaime becomes a member of the King's Guard, which are sworn protectors of the king, and he became a member of King Aerys's guard.
Yes, and then he killed King Aerys, earning him the name of the Kingslayer.
Right. And it's in season 3 he reveals in confidence the reason why he killed the king.
The Targaryens, but the fun and dysfunctional. Yes,
Yes, they do.
Not only them, but they definitely do.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's dysfunctional in this show.
Yeah.
So, so we have, and Tywin basically betrays Aerys and invades the capital of King's Landing, and that's when And that's when Aerys goes completely insane and says that he's put all these essentially bombs underneath all the buildings in King's Landing. He's like, I'm going to kill everybody.
Right.
And that's when Jaime stepped in and said, no, you're not, and killed him.
Yes.
But because he betrayed his oath and killed the king he was sworn to protect, he was labeled Kingslayer and ostracized.
Ostracized by some people.
By some.
But yeah, he hasn't exactly made the truth of the matter public.
Right. And I'm not entirely sure why he hasn't. I think mostly just because he doesn't want to muddy the waters any more than it already is.
Yeah, I feel like I get the feeling, I don't know for sure, but I get the feeling that most of the people that Jaime deals with were not big fans of Aerys. So
Yeah.
I don't think that most people
And
scorned him for that.
right,
There's
and
a
I think that's
minority like Ned Stark, and
Yeah.
the minority seem to be our heroes for the most part, which
Right.
is why we get a lot of this. But
Mhm.
people for whom honor is very important, who think that even no matter how bad Aerys was, it was wrong for Jaime to do that, and that makes him a dishonorable person because he broke his oath. But for those people, Jaime, especially at the beginning of the books, is a very prideful character,
Mhm.
and I think he's not willing to beg for them to like him.
Right.
Basically,
Yeah.
he'd rather have them think badly of him than try
Than-
to plead
than,
his case
yeah.
to those people.
Because I guess when he does try to plead his case, it would sound more like he's trying to make excuses, even though it's the truth and nobody would fault him. And I think the only reason that they didn't execute him as a Kingslayer was because King Aerys was so loathed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't stop Ned Stark from hating him.
Right.
Which segues into the next family, House Stark.
Yes.
The most unlucky house in Westeros. The patriarch of House Stark is Ned Stark, or full name Eddard Stark. I don't know how you get Ned from Eddard, but whatever. Who was played by Sean Bean in the show.
Yeah.
And they are essentially called Wardens of the North.
Mm-hmm.
They're located the furthest north geographically, and they live near an area called the Wall, which we haven't talked about yet. And Suzanne is saying, so Jaime is actually more faithful to the position of king than the man who is king.
Kinda, sorta.
Kinda. Honestly, I sort of felt like he was more loyal to his family than to the position.
Yeah, well, to his family, and also, I do think to what was right.
Yeah.
In that case, at least.
Yeah.
He was trying to do what was right.
Mm-hmm.
And what, I guess it also depends on your value of what honor and right is. Because, to Ned Stark, keeping his vow was the honorable thing to do, even under the circumstances. And he doesn't know all the circumstances.
Right.
But
I sort of feel like Ned Stark was the kind of person that even if he did know the circumstances, he would still hold Jaime accountable for his actions. Because he's just that kind of guy.
He has a very black and white view of what's right and what's wrong. And that's his fatal flaw. And I think part of that is because the Starks are so isolated up in the north.
Right.
That Ned is able to maintain this view. And it's when he's put into the capital where there are so many shades of gray and so many different kind of manifestations of what good is and what evil is and all the different shades in between, that he is completely out of his depth. Because that's just not, he can't see the world.
And that becomes very clear very early on.
Very clear.
Because he ends up trusting the one man in King's Landing that you never trust.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you should really trust anybody.
Yeah, but this guy in particular.
What
am I talking about? We're talking about the Starks now.
Right. So besides what happened to his brother and his father, Lyanna, the woman who kind of kicked this all off, was his sister, who was kidnapped by Rhaegar Targaryen.
Which is why he felt the need to step in, and also their mentor, Jon Arryn.
It was his and Robert's, and he and Robert were best friends from childhood. So.
Right. Suzanne is saying, Eve, I really like... Oh, and Samir is here. Hello, Samir. Eve,
yes.
I really, really like your description of Game of Thrones, that it's really about the myriad levels of honor it can mean to different people. Yes.
Yes, Suzanne, that is one of my two favorite things about this book series, and the TV series too. This one is about the shades of gray, basically how they present us with good and evil and how many different forms it takes and how many different definitions it has for different people, and the different characters and how it's balanced between all these different characters. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I think makes this series so exceptional.
And the fact that there isn't just like straight up good and evil.
Right.
And when you try to see things in black and white, you end up paying a pretty dear price for it.
Right, and you have characters who do terrible things for the most honorable of reasons, and you have characters who are trying to do the right thing and they end up doing the worst possible thing. And characters who use underhanded motivations to accomplish great goals. And
right. So
the book never really says like this is the right way.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? It doesn't even like say like this is the good guy and this is the villain. You just sort of get a feel for it. Like, for instance, in the beginning, Jaime Lannister, very prideful guy, very, very spiteful guy. Somebody who you would think is going to be just a bad guy throughout. And
You've got a guy here who, like, one of the first things we see him do is shove a child out a window.
Right. Like, I mean, yeah, his first real act is
like hands down villain, right?
Yeah. But then as you get to know him more, and when he finally confesses what actually happened with King Aerys, like suddenly, like you start feeling real sympathy for this guy. I mean, he also goes through hell in this story.
He has one of the most fascinating character journeys, I think, in the whole book/TV series, is watching him develop.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see what happens to him in season 4 and how they'll handle that. Because we haven't really talked too much about the progression of the story so far. We're talking mostly about the history. But we should talk about the progression of the story a little bit. Let's see, what is Temple saying? I know I didn't like Jaime at first, but he's grown on me and is now one of my favorite characters. Yep, I know a lot of people who feel the same way, and I'm with you right there on that one. Like, I don't know if Jaime is one of my favorite characters. Like, that's probably more Tyrion and Daenerys. Those are far and away my favorite characters, and Arya. So there are lots of characters in this.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say Jaime is one of my favorites per se, but he's definitely one of my favorites to watch. He's definitely one of the most fascinating stories.
He's one of the. He's definitely like one of the most intriguing characters. Like he's very fascinating. So and Temple says, well, how can you not like Tyrion? Well, that goes without saying. Yeah. So
Tyrion is the best.
So I guess I should tell you a little bit about who Tyrion is, since we're talking about him. He is a Lannister. He is the son of Tywin Lannister. He is also a dwarf. He is the youngest child because basically the childbirth was really bad and his mother ended up dying. And the father, Tywin, has, in one way or another, held Tyrion responsible for that.
By being Joffrey, yes. Suzanne, being Joffrey does help you not love Tyrion.
Yes.
It is true.
Yeah, well.
But that's okay because we hate Joffrey.
Oh, yeah.
It says so right here.
Yeah, everybody hates Joffrey. If you don't hate Joffrey, you're just not paying attention.
No. So Tyrion.
He's basically been raised as somebody who has had the cards stacked against him. His father never loved him and says straight up, if I could prove that you're not actually my son, I would and disown you, but I can't. And so basically he's taken to studying. Like, he's been developing his brain as best he can because that's the best weapon that he can come up with to defend himself. And so he's a very well-read, well-learned person, but because he also has daddy issues and family issues, he tends to drink a lot. And he also tends to whore a lot. And there was an incident that happened in his life early on before the story started where he was actually married briefly.
Yes.
And I can't remember the woman's name, but he
Tysha.
Taisha, yes. He was married to her. They had something of a whirlwind romance.
Yes, he thought he saved her from bandits.
Right.
Basically, they came
Yep.
across her on the road, he and Jaime, and
Yeah.
he saved her from bandits and took her to an inn.
And love ensued. They got married, and then one day, his father and his brother came in and said, "Actually, this woman was a whore that we hired in order to get you to finally lose your virginity." And so to prove it, they then brought in 30 other men and had them all pay her a silver coin to have sex with her in front of Tyrion.
Yeah. Well, I don't think was Jaime involved in that part.
He may not have been involved in that last part.
He was involved in the original arrangement, I think.
Yeah.
It's another interesting thing about Jaime because while his father openly loathed him, and Cersei, his older sister, despised him, and Cersei and Jaime love each other, but Jaime actually cares for Tyrion, and it seems like he's always been kind to him.
He has, he's always had a certain level of sympathy for Tyrion, and that's definitely going to come out in this upcoming season.
Right. So he was definitely involved in arranging that little charade, the fake rescue and the relationship.
The second part, that might have been more Tywin's doing. You're right. Like, I think even Jaime would have been like, "That's just too evil for me."
Yeah, but anyway, so that's what happened.
Yeah. And so Tyrion is, he's not broken, but he's very, very defensive.
He's stuck with prostitutes from then on.
Yeah. And as you do.
As you do.
Because the Lannisters are also a very rich family, so he can afford it.
Mm-hmm. But he's also another one who is very interesting in that idea of like good and evil because he's a good character and he has good goals and you really want him to win because he's really going for the best of the kingdom and he cares about other people, but he's much more willing to use underhanded methods and kind of do what must be done. There are lines he won't cross.
Right.
But unlike Ned Stark, where if something isn't honorable, he won't do it, Tyrion is less concerned about what's honorable and more about what will accomplish the goal and what will do the most good.
Right. And that's why Tyrion can get more done than Ned Stark.
Far more. Far more. So he's been a much more effective character.
Right. So in season 1, Robert Baratheon calls Ned Stark in to be the hand of the king, which is sort of like the royal advisor, like the guy who takes care of a lot of the minutiae of the throne, or takes care of the business of the throne.
Especially for a king like Robert, who doesn't want to have anything to do with the business of the throne.
Right. And Suzanne just put up one of Tyrion's best quotes. "A mind needs a book like a sword needs a whetstone."
Yes.
Exactly. So Ned Stark is called in to be the hand of the king. So he has to leave his home in Winterfell and go all the way down to King's Landing. And at that point, he's basically there to uncover a mystery. Because the previous hand of the king, their mutual mentor, Jon Arryn, died under suspicious circumstances. And so Ned goes down there partially to help Robert rule and also to figure out what happened behind the death of Jon Arryn. And that's when he uncovers the truth about Robert's oldest son, Joffrey, who is the next in line to be king. He's also the most evil, horrible, disgusting... God, I hate him!
He's a sociopath and a sadist.
Yeah.
There is nothing redeemable. In the line of good and evil and shades of grey in this book, Joffrey is unredeemable.
Yeah, Joffrey is like the worst human being imaginable. And he's next in line for the throne. And as Ned Stark is doing his investigation, he uncovers the truth of Joffrey's parentage, which is Joffrey is not Robert Baratheon's son. He is the child of Cersei and her twin brother, Jaime. Because the two of them basically have been going at it since they were kids.
Have been pulling a Targaryen.
Yeah. And not only that, they don't just have Joffrey; they have 3 kids together.
All of which are known to be Cersei and Robert's children.
Because they have blonde hair.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so
this
he
is
also
what Jon Arryn had begun to uncover.
Right.
And what Ned starts to believe is the reason for his death.
Right. And not only that, he also uncovers the fact that Robert has been sleeping around and has fathered lots of bastard children all over King's Landing.
Right. Which, Robert sleeping around was kind of a known thing.
Yeah.
But he finds out that Jon Arryn has been tracking down Robert's bastard children.
Yes.
So,
and Temple,
Tommen and
Marcella are the other 2 children, yes.
Who are somehow not sociopaths, at least not yet. They seem like very sweet children.
They actually are very sweet children.
So,
like, after 5 books, I don't really have anything negative to say about either of them.
No. I can only assume it's because Cersei's terrible parenting skills were mostly focused on Joffrey.
Probably. That's the only thing I can think of. So as Ned is uncovering this, he then does the stupidest thing he could ever have possibly done. He goes to Cersei and tells her what he's discovered and says to her, listen, you can either confess your crimes or I will take this to the higher authorities and out you. And what happens? Oh my God, he gets captured.
Yeah.
He gets thrown in prison for treason.
Amazingly, what happens is not that she's remorseful and confesses her sins,
or that she feels like, okay, you got me. Nope. she says, whoa, okay, you're gonna do that. Well, then I'm just going to kill you the same way I killed Jon Arryn.
Right. Well, except not the same way, because she out and out has him arrested, charged with treason. Charged with treason,
and put in the cells. And this is when Ned is also dealing with
because what's happened is Robert dies.
Yeah,
King
Robert
dies. He dies in a hunting accident.
Right, which we're still not entirely convinced was an accident.
And that's when Ned decides he needs to go public with the information because otherwise Joffrey's going to take the throne.
Right.
And obviously, since he now knows that Joffrey isn't Robert's son, he knows that the right thing is that Robert's brother should take the throne.
Right, and he writes a letter saying, as with his authority as Hand of the King, saying that he will transfer all power to his brother Stannis, which then he puts in a letter. Ned notarizes it, signs it, does his Hand of the King duties, and then Cersei takes it and tears it up, and says, "Nope, you know what? Joffrey's going to be king now."
No, I stole. Not a smart move on Ned's part.
No, definitely not a smart move.
It's great to be honorable, but it doesn't do you very good when when the people around you are not willing to also play by the same rules.
Right. So now Joffrey is king, and now he comes to the point. Now we also should mention that Joffrey has been betrothed to Ned's daughter, Sansa. Poor Sansa.
Yeah.
And at first, Sansa was really into it because she was like the young little princess who's like, "Ooh, I'm going to be in the capital and I'm going to be queen and it's going to be lovely and this fairy tale and all this wonderful stuff." And then she actually got to know Joffrey and realized what a horrible human being he is.
Yeah, she kind of shares that with her father, that kind of idealized view of the world, like that it is the way it should be, the way, it's world of heroes and kings and handsome princes and fairy tales. And for both of them, it doesn't work out very well. Neither of them are really well equipped to survive in the world of Westeros the way it really is.
No, not really, not much at all. So
she thinks she's got this handsome prince, and he's a monster in disguise.
Right.
Very thin disguise.
But I mean, she also sticks with that when it comes time for Ned's trial. She pleads with Joffrey to show him mercy. You're about to marry me. He's my father. Show him mercy. And even Cersei advises Joffrey, saying, you should show him mercy and show the people that you're a merciful king and a good man and you understand.
Although for Cersei, it was more of a tactical move.
Right.
Because she knew that killing Ned would start a war with the North.
Right.
And she knew that if they showed him mercy and they let him go into exile instead, or rather join the Night's Watch, but if they exiled him and removed him from his titles without killing him,
they could keep the North in check.
Right.
But instead, Joffrey says, you know what? you're women and you don't know what you're talking about, and has Ned executed.
Right.
Like straight up.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading. I was listening to this on audiobook, and I know.
They're not good.
Nah,
They're not good.
nah, they're really not. Like the narrator, he really sounds like a feeble old man.
Yeah, I mean he's got a nice voice, and on the narration parts, he's wonderful. It's the character voices.
Yeah.
Half of them sound like pirates, and the other half sound like leprechauns.
Yeah. It's
It's
rough.
not good.
It's rough.
It's not good. Anyway.
But unfortunately, it's the only way I can really read the books because it's the only way like I can like make time.
Yeah,
like while
I know.
I'm driving to work.
I know.
So, but anyway, I was on the bus, listening to the audiobook, and I hit that scene, and I was actually transferring from the bus to the subway at Hollywood and Highland, which, if you're in LA, you know this is a very highly trafficked area, lots of people around, and
he was never seen again.
And basically, as I'm crossing the street, this scene happens, and I blurt out a very loud swear word. and everybody just looks at, well, okay, no, nobody really thought that much of it because it's Hollywood, and that's probably the least crazy thing they've seen on the street that day. But still, I was unable to hold back from just like, oh God, I hate Joffrey.
Yeah. Oh, and that's just the beginning for Joffrey.
Oh yeah. And what's amazing is in the series, they actually have made Joffrey even more evil.
I know. And it's interesting too because we're talking about the franchises. One of the things that the TV show has really done that I've noticed is they've done a really good job of making characters more sympathetic.
Mm-hmm.
In several characters like Theon Greyjoy, characters like Catelyn Stark, characters like Cersei Lannister. They've given them some really good character moments, scenes, and conversations that give you more of an insight into their and Shay.
Shay is a great character.
Lots of characters have gotten a lot more sympathetic treatment from the TV show than the books necessarily gave them, and it's given them more dimension. Whereas Joffrey, the TV series, has chosen to make him even worse.
Yeah, like they're basically just going all out and like making him so utterly irredeemable that you're like, all you can do is like with every episode is just pray this will be the one where he dies.
Yeah.
And Suzanne is saying, which makes it even cooler when Tyrion slaps him.
Oh, it's such a joy.
Oh God, like that one scene in season 1 where Tyrion just slaps Joffrey like 2-3 times.
Went viral so fast.
Mm-hmm. And what I love is like there's the 10-hour version of it, just over and over again. And you know what? You can just watch it for a good long while and just go, oh God, that feels good. Oh God, that feels good.
Yeah. I root for those moments too, I stole.
I stole saying I let out a cheer every time Tyrion slaps him, yes. and it's not only Tyrion who's slapped Joffrey. Cersei's gotten a couple slaps in there. There's a great moment in season 3 where Tywin, of all people, just doesn't even slap him, just speaks to him and just shuts him down in like it is the most amazing verbal slap I've ever seen.
Tywin is master of the verbal smackdown.
He really is. Like
and,
he can say things that just like cut you so deep.
And that is one of the few moments when I've just cheered for Tywin with no reservations.
Yeah.
Most of the time I hate him, but set him up against Joffrey, and I will root for him until the end of time.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I mean, yeah, in every other situation, Tywin is terrible.
Because Tywin has sense. Like he's a terrible person, and he's terrible to other people, but he's not. He's gonna hold the realm together.
Yeah.
You know, as long as he has the power, he or his family have the power.
He's not a maniac. Joffrey is a maniac.
Mm-hmm. Joffrey is.
Joffrey is in this only for himself.
I mean, Joffrey is what happens when you take a child who is not mentally stable to begin with. Mm-hmm. You raise him with severely inflated notions of his own importance and no respect for anyone, and then you give him power way too young. Yeah. Way too much power, way too young.
Mm-hmm. And you have a guy who's like, you know what? I'm just going to hire prostitutes in order to kill them.
Yeah.
And that's what he does.
He didn't hire them.
Yeah, they were brought to him.
They were a present.
Yeah. Which of course, like, yeah. So yeah, we hate Joffrey.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked too much about the Wall or Jon or any of that stuff.
Yes. Are we talking theories or are we just going to talk facts?
We can talk. Well, let's talk facts first, and then we can get into theories.
Facts first and then theories. Got it.
So there is an area in the north.
Yes, Suzanne, another really good quote. Any man who must say, I am the king is no true king.
Yes,
Is a
exactly.
very good quote.
Yeah, and you know what? I say that in...
Do you have a list over there somewhere that you're
She
working
probably
from?
does.
All the best quotes?
Knowing Suzanne, she's probably got a list of the quotable Game of Thrones right in front of her.
Probably.
Yeah. I totally forgot what I was saying. Okay. The Wall.
Jon Snow.
Jon Snow.
So we started talking about the Starks, and then we kind of went off on a sidetrack.
Yeah.
So Ned Stark has 6 children.
6, yes.
Technically.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of. So he has 5 true-born children.
Mm-hmm.
He has son Robb, daughter Sansa, son Bran,
daughter Arya,
and son Rickon.
Right. And then the illegitimate son, Jon.
Who is the same age as Robb, and who was fathered by Ned while he was off fighting Robert's Rebellion.
Right. And he was brought back after the war and raised as his own, but his full name is Jon Snow because the tradition in this world is if you are an illegitimate child, you are given you're given a generic last name. You're not allowed to have the family name.
Yeah, and it just has to do with what fiefdom basically you live in. Like the bastards of the north get the surname Snow, and then the ones over here get Stone, and the ones over here get Sand, and the ones here. So.
Temple is saying, I like shouting, you know nothing, Jon Snow at the
TV. We all like that.
Yeah, we all do. There was actually like a funny moment we were watching it yesterday when the scene when Jon and Ygritte finally get together, and she starts saying, "You know nothing, Jon Snow," and then suddenly she starts going into ecstasy, and I was like, "Well, he must know something."
He knows something. So Jon Snow, he's presented as, you know, he was raised with the other Stark children. They think of him as a sibling mostly. Right. Sansa's a little bit scornful.
Sansa's more of a traditionalist that way.
Yeah, but he's very close to the younger ones, and he's very close to Robb.
Mm-hmm. But he's very close to Arya as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, but he knows that he doesn't really have a position there. In the future. And
he has no real place in the family. He's never going to inherit. Mm-hmm. He's never going to truly be respected at court.
Right.
And so he decides he's going to join the Night's Watch.
And they're the only people further north than the Starks.
Yes.
In this kingdom.
And
There's a gigantic ice wall at the north end of this kingdom, blocking out nobody really knows what. A bunch of wild,
it blocks out an area further north that is full of
savage people.
Savages and possibly evil magic.
Zombies.
Yeah. And zombies.
But nobody really believes in that anymore, the evil magic.
Yeah, until, it comes knocking on their door.
Until it comes knocking on their door.
So, one of the big kickoff moments in this whole series is when a group of Night Watch Rangers go beyond the wall and encounter the White Walkers, which are essentially zombies, but smart zombies.
Right. No. The White Walkers are basically monsters made of evil cold magic, and they can turn dead bodies into mindless slaves for them, and those are called Whites.
Mm-hmm. And so this one ranging party encounters them, and one survivor comes back saying, "The White Walkers are coming! The White Walkers are coming!" And they basically he is executed because he left his post.
Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks he's lost his mind.
Yeah.
Spent too much time up there. He's gone crazy.
Right. And that's the thing. The wall was put up essentially to keep things like the White Walkers from invading the southern lands.
Suzanne, long quote coming.
Okay.
Waiting with anticipation.
Yes. All right, we'll just keep going as she puts down the long quote.
Right.
So
So Jon goes up to join the guard,
Uh-huh.
whose traditional duty is to protect against.
and they're basically like monk knights,
Mhm.
sort of like they're not allowed to. They renounce all their family ties. They renounce all their inheritances. They are not allowed to take a wife or even be with a woman.
Mhm.
Basically, they're there for life to guard the wall.
Right.
And it used to be considered a position of very high esteem and high honor. And Suzanne has just put up the oath of the Night's Watch. Night, night gathers, and now my watch begins.
It shall not end until my death. And the rest of it, there it is.
I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. I shall live and die at. There we go. At my post, I am the sword. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. I am the fire that burns against cold, the light that brings the dawn, the horn that wakes the sleepers, the shield that guards the realms of men. I pledge my life and honor to the Night's Watch for this night and all nights to come.
And they take it very seriously.
They do.
But it's one of those
situations. Because basically, if you break any aspect of that oath, it's punishable by death.
Mm-hmm. You're in for life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those situations where this order was founded to battle or to stand against this great evil. But it's been so long this great evil has been seen, nobody really believes it still exists, and the Night Watch has dwindled.
Yeah, like there are 19 castles posted along the wall that are supposed to be fully manned by the Night's Watch, and now only 3 are.
Yes, and only by skeleton.
Yeah, and by a skeleton crew. And the Night's Watch also, when it was first set up, used to be a very honorable position, and noblemen would go to do this because it was a great honor and a great privilege to take up this mantle and to sacrifice or to give up your own life in defense of the realm.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's essentially punishment.
Right. That's where they give you the choice, basically.
You can either, like, if you're
depending on your crime.
Yeah, if you're a criminal, your choice is either you can be executed or you can go to the wall. Or even if you're part of a noble house and your father just doesn't like you, he'll send you to the wall, like Samwell Tarly.
Right. But it's another case of the Starks having this somewhat unrealistic view of the world, because the Starks still consider the Night's Watch to be an honorable thing. And
right.
Benjen Stark, Ned's brother, is a member of the Night's Watch. He's one of their top rangers.
Mm-hmm.
And Jon wants to become like Benjen. He wants to go join the Night's Watch and defend the realms of men that his father's been telling him about.
Because this is basically the only way that Jon is ever going to gain any glory for himself.
Right. Not that you're supposed to have glory. We also have not really glory, but it's a way for him to be honorable.
He can be his own person there.
Purpose.
Yeah.
And the first thing he finds out when he actually heads out there is that the people who are joining with him are rapers, murderers, thieves, and that like almost everyone else who's going did not choose to go there. Nobody wants to go there.
Right. Like Jon is like the only guy.
Yeah, and the one who clues him in on this first is Tyrion. Because Tyrion is going up to see the wall and they're traveling together, and basically it gives Tyrion a chance to kind of open Jon's eyes a little bit to this view of like, the world is not as black and white as your father thinks it is.
Right.
So it's the first time kind of Jon starts getting a more realistic view of the world.
And it's good that he gets that insight, because as soon as he joins the Night's Watch, like, he is kind of like odd man out, and he is bullied hard by some people.
And he kind of brings it on himself. I mean, he has some hard lessons to learn in that first book of like what's reasonable to expect and what the right ways to behave are.
Right. But
he takes those lessons to heart and he learns, which is something that his father did not manage to do. Mm-hmm. He changes as a character, and he learns how to be more prudent.
Right.
And less kind of high-bound.
But, I mean, his potential is also seen by the Lord Commander. And he, for lack of a better term, takes him under his wing, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Like, he takes him on as his squire.
Right.
And specifically to groom him to one day take up the mantle of Lord Commander himself. So, I mean, people do see the potential in Jon Snow, but there's just not too many. There are many more people who see him as a threat. Mm-hmm. So, what essentially kicks off the whole story in the North with the Night's Watch is when Benjen goes on a ranging party and doesn't come back, and and John wants to go and find him, and the Lord Commander say, "No, we can't do that. We need to stay here at Castle Black." And then a couple dead bodies return to the Wall.
Right. So what we find out through Benjen's disappearance is that many Rangers have disappeared recently. Something weird is going on, and Benjen's party was sent up to look for that first group that we lost at the beginning of the book.
Right.
And instead of that, they disappeared too. And then some of their bodies were found.
Right. And so they bring them back to give them a proper burial, and then all of a sudden, the dead bodies spring to life.
Right.
And
this isn't Walking Dead, so it doesn't occur to them that maybe you shouldn't bring the corpses into the house.
Right.
So
they are eventually able to stop it.
Yes.
But that's when they realize there is really something seriously wrong going on here. And they've been hearing whispers about a new king in the North named Mance Rayder, who used to be a member of the Night's Watch, but then went north, abandoned his post, and joined the group of people called the Wildlings, which are essentially humans who live beyond the Wall, who are they're wild.
Yeah,
pretty much.
From the perspective of the Westeros people, they're savages.
Right.
And they kind of are, but we get a better view of them
Mm-hmm.
later on, because Jon ends up among them.
Right.
Basically.
And so the Lord Commander Mormont is fearing that Mance Rayder is gearing up for a major invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And so he basically takes almost everybody in Castle Black and goes beyond the Wall to find him and stop him.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Although,
things kind of go to hell.
I think Mormont suspects there's more going on than just Mance Rayder.
Right.
Because while Tyrion is at the Wall, we see Mormont sit Tyrion down and say, "Look, you see how undermanned we are. You see, how much need we have and how little people are helping us. There is a great big danger coming. I've dreamed it. I've seen it. I know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
We need help." And Tyrion thinks, this is an old man. He's devoted his whole life to this. He wants it to mean something. I'll say soothing words to him. But what we see is that Mormont is right. It's not just Mance Rayder. There's something much bigger happening.
Yeah, there's big stuff brewing beyond the Wall, and even now at Book 5, we're still not entirely sure what it all is.
Right.
Or what's behind it all. So he leads a party with Jon Snow and with just about everybody beyond the Wall to basically infiltrate the Wildlings, or at least to stop Mance Rayder, because that's the one thing they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stuff with the White Walkers, they don't even know where to start fighting them.
Right, and sending small parties is just resulting in small parties disappearing. So
Right.
It's basically, we're all going. We're taking everybody, we're going up there, we're finding out what's going on, we're doing something about it.
And that's when they run into Craster, who is one creepy old dude.
Yeah.
Is he still a member of the Night's Watch, or was he once a member?
No.
Yeah.
No, he's a wildling. I mean, he's one of the wildlings, but he's kind of established himself a hold there instead of sticking with the tribes. But
right.
He kind of made his own tribe, kind of literally made his own tribe.
Yeah, so he has like this sort of very, very tenuous arrangement with the Night's Watch, where if they're beyond the Wall, they can stay with him, but at a price.
Mm-hmm.
And Craster, basically what he does is he has tons and tons of wives. And he has tons and tons of children with them. And the children who are women, he raises, who then will one day grow up to become another one of his wives. And while the males are spirited away to the forest. And it's there that Jon discovers that he's actually offering up the male children as a sacrifice to the White Walkers.
Right.
And he tries to...
yes, Craster, worse than the Targaryens. Yes,
he is.
Craster's a messed up dude.
Yes, he is.
But, yeah.
And so Jon takes this information to the Lord Commander Mormont, and Mormont says, "Well, that's his arrangement. We can't
Not
do
our
anything about
business."
that. That's not our business." Because like part of the arrangement with Craster is don't get in my business and you can stay.
Mhm.
And since it is like the only way station in the north, Mormont doesn't want to give that up.
Right.
So so now we're getting into season 2 territory in the north.
Right.
So eventually I think they meet up with the half hand, or was he part of the party?
They meet up with a reigning party that was already up there that's run by Quarren Halfhand, who's one of the really high, ranked older members of the Night's Watch.
Mhm.
And he takes a party, and they go, including
Yeah.
Jon.
And basically to infiltrate a wildling camp,
Mm-hmm.
or to take some wildling prisoners.
Right.
And things kind of go horribly wrong.
Right.
And they get taken prisoner. And so Quarren tells Jon that basically he needs to do whatever he can to gain the trust of the wildlings and infiltrate their camp and gain the trust of Mance Rayder. And in order for Jon to do that, he needs to kill Quarren.
Right.
Which he does.
And that's another big step in Jon's evolution as a character.
Mm-hmm. But the only two people who know that this is the mission that Jon is on is Quarren Halfhand, who is now dead, and Lord Commander Mormont.
Right.
So basically nobody else in the Night's Watch knows that Jon is doing this. As far as anybody else in the Night's Watch is concerned, Jon truly did betray them.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least they will think that once they realize he's turned, because as far as they're concerned, he's just gone at this point.
Right. Right, and
So,
then he comes back as part of a party of wildlings.
Mm-hmm. So he joins up with the wildlings, and he works to gain their trust.
Yes.
And
in the meantime.
And then in the meantime, basically a couple members of the Night's Watch become so fed up with Craster that they kill him.
Yeah, things go to hell at Craster's house.
Things go to hell at Craster's house, and in the process, Lord Commander Mormont is also killed.
Yes.
So now nobody knows that Jon is trying to infiltrate the wildlings.
Right. And the Night's Watch runs into White Walkers, so they lose a whole bunch more people there. So
Mm-hmm.
the ones that manage to straggle back to the wall, there are not many.
Right.
And that was most of their fighting force.
But there is one who has discovered the weakness of the White Walkers, Samwell.
Mm-hmm.
During their travels, they discover a cache of daggers made of what's called dragon glass.
Obsidian.
It's basically obsidian. And he takes them with him, and Sam he doesn't really abandon the Night's Watch. He just sort of escapes during the chaos at Craster,
Mm-hmm.
at Craster's Keep, and he takes with him one of Craster's wives, Gilly, who has just had a son. And basically, he wants to take her back to Castle Black and sort of give her a chance to live her life. But he also has these dragon glass daggers with him, and wouldn't you know it, they run into a White Walker,
Of course.
as you do. And Sam, not knowing what to do, finally just in a sheer moment of panic, grabs one of the dragon glass daggers and stabs a White Walker with it, and it explodes. And he doesn't do this in the book, but in the show, he runs off and leaves the dagger behind. And I was screaming at the TV. I was screaming at the TV when he did that. I'm like, dude, you just found the one thing that can kill a White Walker and you're not taking it with you? But that's
I'm sure there's a reason why they did that.
I hope so.
Anyway.
So
now we know there is something they're vulnerable to, but it's a very rare something and very few people know about it.
Right. But Sam does eventually get back and recounts the story, and he, up to that point, he's been seen as like a wet blanket. Like even he will say, like, listen, I'm a coward. I'm a nobody. I'm not going to do any good. Like, you basically, you know what? Just put me in the kitchens. Put me somewhere where I'm not going to be of any use to anybody because I'm horrible.
Right. But what you see with Sam is that it's kind of like with Tyrion. He's seen as a weak because he's a coward and he's not a good fighter. He's overweight
Right.
and he's clumsy and he's afraid of everything.
But he's also very intelligent.
He's very intelligent and he's very knowledgeable. He was also the son of a lord. He's a voracious reader, and he ends up working with the Maester, Aemon, who's the Maester at Castle Black.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a lot of knowledge of the past. And especially now that things from the past are coming back to haunt them, this turns out to be a very useful thing.
Right. And so, like, he recounts the story of how he actually killed a White Walker with one of these dragonglass blades, and he then gets the title of Sam the Slayer, which I love. I love that that's his nickname now. But now we're getting into book territory.
Yes.
But where we stand with Jon in the series is he's with the Wildlings, and he's joined a raiding party to scale the wall and infiltrate
Castle Black.
Castle Black.
He's on his way to invade his own castle, so we don't know what he's going to do when he gets there, except that nobody he's with trusts him. They're all perfectly willing to kill him the minute they suspect he's going to turn on them.
Right. But he still does it. The only person who seems to trust him in any respect is Ygritte, who is his love interest.
Yes.
And so they scale the wall, and basically, very quickly, Jon realizes he needs to warn everybody that this is happening, and his cover is blown, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And so he runs off. He gets attacked by a hawk because one of their people is a warg who is a person who can control animals. And so Jon basically has to leave the raiding party and basically head back to Castle Black and pray to God somebody will stand up for him and not execute him on the spot.
Right.
So he's kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I know where it goes, but I'm not saying.
Well, we know where it goes in the books.
Yeah.
Because we'll find out if the series does the same.
Yeah.
I mean, starting with season 2,
they've changed some things.
They have, and it's interesting. I think that they've done a really good job interpreting, and I think I really like the changes that they've made.
Yeah.
Not that I necessarily think that they're a better way to go than the books, but I think they've worked better in the TV series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like especially with like all the different sub stories going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's really interesting is like every member of the Stark family has like some major character arc happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sansa has her. Basically, she is a pawn in a much bigger game, in a much bigger political game between the Lannisters and the Tyrells.
Mm-hmm.
Arya, she is just a leaf on the wind, man.
Don't say that.
Oh God,
that never
no.
bodes well.
No. Like
Arya starts out as like the tomboyish girl who doesn't want to learn embroidery, and she wants to, learn fighting.
She wants
to
learn archery. She wants to hang out with the boys. She's very close with Jon Snow,
Right.
and in fact, when he leaves for the Wall, there's this beautiful tender moment with him and Arya, and I think I Stole the One Ring was talking about the quote from that scene where he gives her a little knife that is nicknamed Needle.
It's a sword.
It's a sword.
It's proportionate to a 10-year-old girl's sword, but
Yeah.
it's a sword.
And his bit of advice to her is, remember, sticking with the pointy end.
Sticking with the pointy end. First lesson. And it ends up saving her life.
It does.
Lesson. I mean, they laugh about it at the time.
Yeah.
But she does end up getting her sword fighting lessons.
Yeah.
And then she ends up kind of, I guess the universe is kind of saying, be careful what you wish for, because she ends up masquerading as a boy and having to protect herself and use those fighting skills.
Right. And then she basically goes through. She is by herself, alone in the crowd. Well, somebody, a trusted friend of her father, grabs her during Ned Stark's execution. And what's so interesting about that scene is in the book, it's told entirely from Arya's perspective. And in that scene, the friend actually takes her and covers her so that she doesn't see the moment where he gets executed. So part of me is thinking, because we didn't see it, maybe it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
And of course, that ended up not being the case at all. And so from there, she gets spirited away. Basically, he's a member of the Night's Watch, and he's taking a bunch of new recruits, and he's going to drop her off at Winterfell on the way back to the Wall. That doesn't happen. They get waylaid, and everybody gets killed, and she gets captured. And from there, they are taken prisoner. In the series, now this is an interesting departure. In the series, she becomes a serving girl for Tywin Lannister.
And he doesn't know who she is.
He doesn't know who she is, but she knows who he is. And so she's basically serving him as while he's in control of the fortress called Harrenhal. And it's really interesting because like this is one of those points where like you actually kind of like Tywin a little bit, just because he's actually like showing sympathy to Arya and actually like respecting her wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a point where he's in council with a couple people and they're just being just complete idiots, and so finally, and I know that Tywin was really doing this to make a point to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like he says, "Girl, what would you do in this situation?" And Arya ends up giving a very astute analysis of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "You see, even the serving girl knows how to handle a war better than you." But like it was, and I stole the one where he's saying, "I like the TV version better than the book." I think.
Yeah.
For that part, yes.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting choice. Once again, it was giving us more dimension to the character, and
Yeah.
you get the feeling that Tywin, as hateful and awful as he can be, he's an intelligent man, and he's one of those people who's basically lived his life feeling like that almost no one can keep up with him.
Right.
Like that he is pretty much better than everyone and smarter than everyone, and I'm surrounded by idiots type of character.
Exactly.
So I think that kind of lends itself to this fact that when he finds someone, even if it's like this scruffy serving girl who actually has a scrap of brains in her head, he respects that.
Yeah. And
it doesn't make him like his son any better, but you know, that's different.
Mm-hmm. After Harrenhal, basically Arya orchestrates an escape for her and her friends Gendry and Hot Pie. With this one guy, and I can't remember his name now.
Jaqen H'ghar.
Yes,
This was
Jaqen
one of the
H'ghar.
Yeah, he was one of the characters. He was one of the prisoners that was being taken to the Night's Watch with the party that Arya was hiding in, and she saved them basically by releasing them before they could be burned to death when the Night's Watch was attacked. When the party was attacked and everyone was killed, she released them so they were able to get away.
Right, and so now Jaqen H'ghar basically says that because 3 people were going to kill him and all of them got killed thanks to her releasing him, he now owes her 3 lives or something like that. Or because I can't remember how it goes, but
Was it because of that, or was it because of the 3 of them in the wagon?
It might have been because
she
of
saved 3 lives.
Yeah, she saved 3 lives, and so he owes her 3 lives.
Basically, yeah, he says, you know, at one point she asks him for help, and he says, "I didn't promise you help. I promised you lives." She can pick 3 people to die, and no matter who they are, and he will see it done.
She just needs to name them, and he'll do it.
So then she finds herself with just tremendous power in her hands.
But it's like this weird version of like the Aladdin 3 wishes.
Yes. Yeah, and she's been carrying around this list in her head of all the people who she wants to see die.
Yeah.
For what they've done to her family, her father, herself.
Her friends.
And now she might, and she doesn't know anything about this guy. So, but he tells her it could be anyone. So in theory, at least, she can say Joffrey. Yeah,
he's got the skills apparently to kill anybody. And so eventually, like with the last name, she says, "Okay, I want you to kill Jaqen H'ghar." And he says, "You want me to kill myself?" And I can't remember how they do it, but basically she uses that to parlay it into him allowing her, Gendry, and Hot Pie to leave Harrenhal before it gets sacked.
Yes.
Which it does, and they do. They're able to escape, and her last encounter with Jaqen is he gives her a special coin, a Bravasi coin, because that's where he's from. He's from the country of Bravos, which is also where her sword instructor was from, and basically says if you ever get to Bravos, go to this building with this coin and say the words Valar Morghulis. And because one of his amazing skills is he can actually change his face.
Right.
And she wants to learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But her road to that is a long and winding one. And so...
Right, so she has this coin and this promise.
Right. And so eventually she's going to get to Bravos. She hasn't yet, not in the story, not in the TV show anyway. So in season 3, she's basically on the road with Gendry and Hot Pie, and they get captured by the Brotherhood Without Banners, which is...
There are so many storylines going on.
There really are. And these are guys who worship the one true God, R'hllor, the Lord of Light.
Yes. Which is not the prevailing religion in Westeros.
No, the prevailing religion in Westeros is the worship of the Seven, which is not actually 7 gods. It's one god with 7 heads. And they all have various different personalities.
Right.
But this is another one, the Lord of Light, the one true God. And there actually seems to be something to it because they have the priesthood of this religion actually has some rather convincing magical powers. And you're never entirely sure if it's just a parlor trick or if there really is some genuine magic going on here. Mm-hmm. Especially with their ability to resurrect the dead.
Back from the dead is a little more than a parlor trick.
Yeah. But, I mean, a lot of, like, what the Red Woman, who is working with Stannis Baratheon, she does stuff that seems to be nothing but parlor tricks, except for when she gives birth to a demon baby.
Temple says it would not have worked as a movie with all the storylines. It would have had to be massively truncated, and that is very true.
That is so true.
I've been really impressed by the books and by the TV show by how well they've managed to juggle all the different storylines and keep them from getting confusing.
And to, like, just to keep it all together, like, I mean, they really pack a lot into each episode. Like, I mean, when we were watching yesterday, it's like there is not a wasted moment in any episode in this series.
Right.
Like, everything is significant. Everything is playing a part in a bigger storyline. Every line has meaning. Every look has meaning. Mm-hmm. Every costume has meaning. Like, there's a lot of details in the costumes that you really can't see that even those themselves, like, actually help to tell the story. Like Daenerys, who we haven't talked about at all. What the hell? Her outfits, one of the costume designers was talking about how her outfits throughout the course of the series have gotten thicker, specifically to resemble the thickening of dragon scales as her own dragons get bigger.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, when you look back at it, yeah, she was wearing, like, very flimsy dresses in the beginning, and now in season 3, she's got pants and she's got this very thick tunic, and it's like, yeah, she's like, that's really what they're doing with it. And I think that's a fantastic touch.
Yeah, that is. There was one thing that, I mean, Daenerys' costumes, I didn't realize that one, but just reading the books and in the series as well, but you notice that wherever Daenerys is, she's able to kind of adopt the fashions and the kind of the looks and I'm missing the word that I want. Like the traditions and the lifestyle of the society that she's in. And we watch her travel through the free city, not through the free cities, but through the different cities and through the continents and Ashai and Karth and
Ostapor, and
everywhere,
Meereen. Yeah.
and she blends in, while still standing out. But she takes these places into herself basically, and she makes herself a part of them. Unlike her brother Viserys, who tried to kind of impose himself upon everything around him.
Right.
It's presented as a contradiction between them very early on.
Mm-hmm.
Contrast.
Yeah, and I stole the one where you're saying, how can you forget the Mother of Dragons? I'm like, we haven't forgotten her. No, Daenerys is one of my most favorite characters in the entire series.
Yes, mine too.
I love her, and I am 100% rooting for her to win the Iron Throne.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But, I mean, Daenerys has a really fantastic story. She has one of the most amazing story arcs in this whole series. She's begun, she and her brother, Viserys, are basically growing up in exile across the sea in another continent called Essos.
These are the younger siblings of Rhaegar Targaryen. So they are technically the heirs to the throne.
Right. And they consider Robert Baratheon and anybody in the Iron Throne who isn't a Targaryen to be a usurper. Or at least Viserys does. I think Daenerys is probably not as severe.
Yeah, well, they've grown up with this idea, especially Viserys, but that eventually they would go home and Viserys would take the throne that was rightfully his.
Mm-hmm.
And basically everything has been based around that goal for them.
Mm-hmm. So I stole the one ring saying, so I have to ask, who do you think will sit on the throne? Daenerys.
I want to see Daenerys there.
I really want to see
her
Daenerys
there with Tyrion on one hand and Jon Snow on the other.
Yep.
Maybe Arya hanging out too.
Yeah. Like, we were talking about this yesterday, like, the best power dynamic you can have for, like, Westeros would be Daenerys on the throne, Jon Snow and Tyrion as her husband / dragon riders, and Arya as her master whisperer, or her master of whispers.
Yeah. I would like to see that.
That would be amazing.
What about you guys?
Yeah.
Who do you want to see on the throne?
Who do you want to see on the throne?
Or riding the three dragons.
Yeah. Like, part of me is still hoping, like, at one point we are going to see Daenerys on her dragon with possibly Jon and Tyrion on the other two dragons, and they are just gonna blow up the wall. That's what I'm seeing.
That would be interesting. That would be a cool visual.
I really feel like at some point, because like it's really kind of telegraphed.
Temple says, my theory is the walkers will destroy everyone and there will be nobody on the throne. I wouldn't put it past George Martin.
No, I wouldn't either. Like, he would do that. He would do a scorched earth.
But I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not as well, because like it's been fairly telegraphed that like something awful is going to happen to the wall. Like, that's part of like what the prophecy of the Song of Ice and Fire is, or at least that was my interpretation. Like,
which part?
Well, Ice and Fire for one.
Mm-hmm.
Like for some reason that says to me like the wall is coming down.
Okay.
And
well, there are a lot of. Well, and here again, we're just going to talk about interpretations again, really quick, book to TV show, because besides the exploration of shades of grey and honor and good and evil, which is in both the books and the TV show beautifully,
right.
The other thing that I love in the books that has not really made it into the TV show, and I understand why, but it's the prophecies. It's the prophecies and the prophetic dreams, and if you haven't read the books, they are full of it. The foreshadowing is everywhere, and it's
especially
so
with Bran.
And amazing. Bran, Daenerys gets a ton, and a lot of characters get smaller amounts, but the prophecy of Rahilor, Azor Ahai, so much prophecy, and it's just fascinating to watch it play out and to try to interpret what all the different parts mean. Yeah. So.
I got the sense, I think it was in book 2 when Daenerys has her vision from when she visits the warlocks in Karth. Which, that was interesting how they changed that in the TV series, because in the books, she goes willingly. And in the TV series, she is basically forced into it because they kidnap her dragons.
Yes.
Which I thought was an interesting interpretation, or an interesting deviation. I thought it still worked, but I thought it was interesting that they took it that way.
And but also the visions she saw were different.
They were. But I felt like in the book, like what I got from that was that she was eventually one day going to come to Westeros on her dragons and actually destroy the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was kind of my takeaway from it.
Yeah, well, there was so much in those visions in the books,
Mm-hmm.
and a large part of the prophecies, at least the prevailing fan theories, is that a lot of what we're seeing prophesied comes down to Jon Snow.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jon Snow, Ned Stark's ostensible bastard son, Ned would never name his mother,
Mm-hmm.
and we also see in Ned's memories when he found his sister dying in a bed of blood, and she said, "Promise me, Ned." And we never find out what he promised her. And so there's a prevailing fan theory that some of you may know that Jon Snow is actually the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen.
And that's what I was.
Not confirmed in the books or the TV show.
Right,
Yet.
it's not confirmed at all, but I mean, I subscribe to that theory as well.
But yeah, and they have some interesting moments, like part of Daenerys' visions.
Mhm.
I think it's in Dany's vision.
Yeah.
In her visions, she travels to the wall and she sees a blue rose growing out of a crack in the wall.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a bit in the book earlier where Ned and Robert are talking about how much Lyanna loved blue roses.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of just little hints and things like that where once you've read them and it all slowly starts to come together. That is
Right.
so interesting.
And then the other theory is that Tyrion is also part Targaryen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is, his father's repeated, saying if he could prove that Tyrion was not his son, and it would certainly help explain why Tywin loathes him so much.
Right.
But also the fact that one of the first things the books tell you about Tyrion is that his hair is a much lighter blonde than his siblings' hair.
And it should be noted that one of the most distinctive features of the Targaryens is their silver hair.
Mm-hmm. So that one has less evidence behind it, but it's certainly interesting. And I kind of like it.
I like it too.
And I think the books do. I don't remember for sure. I think the books do say that Tywin's wife, was it Eris, that had a thing for Tywin's wife.
I think so. I think it was Eris who had a thing for Tywin's wife. Yeah. So it is possible that at some point Eris actually took her.
Mm-hmm.
And had his way with her. Oh, and Temple is saying the lavender eyes is also a distinctive feature for the Targaryens. This is true.
Jon Snow's real lineage. Yeah, they're lavender eyes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is why I really want Jon Snow and Tyrion to be
the
other two dragon riders, because
yes.
First of all, that would be epic.
Yes. Yes, it would.
But what I love about Daenerys is how she starts off kind of as... Actually, no, she straight up starts off as a pawn.
Absolutely.
She's basically sold off by her brother to the Dothraki, which are the horse lords of Essos, in order to gain their army so that he can take back the Iron Throne.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's wed off to their leader, Khal Drogo.
Yeah, and at the beginning, she's an even weaker character than Sansa. She lives in terror of her brother. She has absolutely no control over anything that happens to her.
She's abused on almost a daily basis by her brother.
Yes, and she just kind of takes it for granted because he's the king and he's her brother, and
mm-hmm.
she believes that they'll be married one day because that's what the Targaryens do.
Right.
But she has zero control over anything that happens to her. And her story is just a story of her taking control.
Right. And part of that is because of her being brought into the Dothraki culture, because they are very powerful people.
Although it's interesting because they're also a very, very male-dominated society. Like the women
They are. But what's interesting about Drogo is, like, even though it starts off like with him sort of treating her as just like a trophy wife,
mm-hmm.
like it seems like he almost sees something in her that endears her to him on a much deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to bring that out in her. And Temple is saying, in some ways, Daenerys and Sansa are two sides of similar stories. Daenerys is able to break out, Sansa gets stuck in. And, that's a good point. And I'm kind of waiting for Sansa to break out.
Yeah, well, I think the important thing about the difference between the way they start out is that Sansa feels like she has power in her own life.
Right.
She's also being, set up into a marriage, but it's one that she wants.
Mm-hmm.
It's one that she's happy about, and she feels like her life is going the way she wants it to, and like
Right.
even if she doesn't really, she has to kind of discover that she has no power in her life. It's almost an opposite journey.
Yeah.
Because once she finds out what Joffrey is, and she sees what he can get away with doing to her with no one making a move to stop it, and she discovers her own powerlessness. Whereas Daenerys starts out with this feeling where she has no power, and she slowly learns that she can take power. And Sansa has to kind of reach that point before she can start moving back.
Right.
She has to reach the point where she realizes that she doesn't have the power that she thought she did before she can start trying to take it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they're an interesting parallel in that way.
Yeah. But I think there is going to come a point where Sansa is going to like really break out and sort of become like sort of break out in defiance of being the pawn that she is.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of feel like in the books at least it's coming to a point where it's really coming to a head.
We're getting close.
We're getting close, and Martin has hinted at this, that in book 6 Sansa is going to do something that will shock everybody.
Hope so.
I'm insanely curious to find out what that is.
Yeah. No, she showed it. Her fairy tale vision of the world showed incredible resilience in those first couple books, especially in the books. In the series too, but especially in the books, where even once she realized that Joffrey wasn't her fairy tale, she just kind of tried to restructure her fairy tale.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, like, she actually realized very early on just, like, what a horrible person Joffrey is. Like, she started discovering it even before they got to King's Landing, like, while they were on the road. She started realizing, like, that he's probably not that great a person. But she's like, it's still okay. It's still okay.
Yeah, I think she was still, at that time, she was still trying to convince herself.
Yeah.
Even after what happened on the road, I think she was still trying to convince herself she made it Arya's fault. She made it,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Arya ruins everything.
Yeah.
But, once they got there, and especially once she lost the protection of her father and Robert, and Joffrey was the one in power, then she was left,
And she was pretty much on her own, essentially. Right. And what we have with Daenerys is somebody who is also on her own, essentially, because like there's absolutely nobody coming to her defense until she meets Khal Drogo, and that's when she starts realizing her own strength, and people are starting to respect her, and she starts using this power like for real good. Like she starts using this power that she has to free slaves. And even when she is confronted with a situation that basically would have said to her, listen, freeing slaves is really not going to help you in any way. Because she frees this group of slaves at one point, and this is after she has she's with child, she's gotten pregnant, and she's very excited because this is going to be the heir to the throne, and the prophecies have said that this is going to be the stallion that mounts the world, and he's going to be the most powerful ruler in the history of Westeros. And she is freeing slaves at the same time, and one of them is she's a mystic or something like that. I can't remember.
She's a Magi is what they call her.
And
she's a witch woman.
Yeah, she's a witch woman.
And everyone tells her not to trust her.
Yeah, they say don't trust her, and she's like, but I'm freeing her. She will help me now, and she does the exact opposite.
Yeah, and there again, you have another moment where a character has done what she sees as the right thing. She rescued this woman from being raped, and she thinks, well, of course she wants to help me. Of course she's grateful to me. Of course I'm doing the right thing, standing up for her. And it totally turns around. And then
Khal Drogo gets mortally wounded in a fight, and so she goes to the woman and says, "Can you please restore Drogo to health?" And she says, I can, but I need to sacrifice a life to pay for it.
Right.
And so she goes through this whole theatrical thing, and it makes it look like she's sacrificing the life of a horse to pay for saving Drogo's life. That's not what happens. Instead, she sacrifices the life of Daenerys' unborn child to save Drogo, but she brings Drogo back in a rather catatonic state.
She restores his life.
She restores his life, but yeah.
Letter of the promise.
It's like the monkey's paw thing. It's like the guy who wishes for his dead father to come back, and so he does, and the dead father comes back, but as an embalmed corpse. So basically, he is a live person who is screaming. So it's like it's like basically, be careful what you wish for.
Yes, and also about how having good intentions and doing the right thing doesn't always pay off in this world. It is not always a prudent or a good move.
But in spite of that, Daenerys still believes that freeing slaves is the right thing to do, and so she continues to do it.
That also does not always work out well for her. Like it's more. We're going to see more of that as the series continues. Probably more of that a lot this season.
Yeah.
Of Dany doing her best, but not always winning.
Because season 3 was definitely about her just like being the rah liberator, and I mean in some seriously amazing scenes. But yeah, it's now at the point now she has her army, she has a city that she can rule, and now it's the final test. Can she rule? Can she be an effective ruler?
Yeah, and it's a little bit, it's putting her through the kind of Robert litmus test. It's you can be a conqueror, you can be a leader. How are you at actually ruling, and how are you at dealing with minutia and sticky situations and things that aren't and people dealing with people.
Things don't work out quite the way you're hoping. And in fact, like without spoiling too much, she comes to a decision at the end of what will be this season that is actually kind of shocking. But yeah, I mean, I'm still totally on board with Daenerys taking the Iron Throne.
Yes, I think she has to go through all of this to get to the point where she'll be a good ruler.
Right, and like this is the only way that you can become like the ruler that Westeros needs.
And it's part of the journey, because she started out as this character that knew she was powerless, that knew she was never going to have any choice in her own life or any ability to affect the lives of other people. And she's come a long way. She's reached where she is a leader and she is not taking crap from anybody. And she has seen that she can change the lives of people around her, and she can lead and people will follow, and she can set this place on fire. Yeah. But now she also has to learn that there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
And she's going to have to take some stumbles and take some falls, and it's all part of the journey that's going to make her, I hope, the person that will be best suited to sit on the Iron Throne.
I think that's where it's going. I mean, like they're kind of introducing like a couple wrinkles into this situation, which is book spoiler, so I won't get into it. But at the same time, I'm kind of hoping that that's all just a red herring.
Well, I think that might, if you're thinking of what I think you're thinking of, I think we might be looking at the fulfillment of another prophecy.
Oh, okay.
There, but.
Okay. All right.
We'll see. We'll find out.
So
the next book needs to come out. I'm so impatient.
Yeah. And Martin has put 2 chapters out online. I refuse to read them.
Yes, I didn't know about the other one until you told me yesterday, but I read it this morning.
Oh no.
So cool, guys.
I read like a couple paragraphs of one of the chapters and realized what was happening. I was like, no, I need to stop this, because if I read this and then I have to keep waiting for more, I'm going to drive myself crazy.
That's a risk I'm willing to take.
You are a stronger person than I.
I'm driving myself crazy anyway, so no harm done.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, we're almost at 2 hours here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually getting to the point where people are going to start showing up here for the second half of my season 3 viewing party.
And then the premiere of season 4.
So what can we expect from season 4? Let's see if we can end on that. Without giving too many book spoilers.
Well, apart from the further development of Daenerys' story, which we've just been talking about, we have what do we have? Jon Snow and Sam and their respective parties all kind of moving back towards the Wall.
Right. We have Bran, who we haven't really talked about at all.
Yeah, no, we haven't. So Bran is on his own strange journey. Bran being the other Stark son that lost the use of his legs at the beginning. Where we've come full circle back to Dark Knight Rises in the chat room.
Apparently. Not a week goes by without... It doesn't feel like an episode of Torn Book Club without Jan mentioning Dark Knight Rises at some point.
But, so Bran's lost the use of his legs. He's hooked up with these mysterious characters, Jojen and Mira Reed, who are brother and sister.
Which is interesting because he actually meets up with them much earlier in the books than he does in the show.
Yeah.
He actually meets up with them in Winterfell.
Yes. Yeah, but I think Benioff said basically he just thought it would have more impact if he met them later. And kind of introduce them into the stew that is the attack on Winterfell. And
I agree. Like, it definitely made their meeting more distinctive and also gave Osha more of a chance to shine as a character.
Yes. Yeah, so they're on their way north to try to find out what Bran's dreams are all about. Mm-hmm. And did they see Jon during that last? I know Jon didn't see Bran, but
no, they didn't see Jon.
Did they ever know Jon was out there?
No.
Well, did Bran see him through the wolves, or was that in the books?
I think it was in the books.
Okay.
Because I don't think Bran saw him because like one of the big things with Bran is that he doesn't want anybody knowing where he is.
Right. Mostly because he's supposed to be dead.
Right. Mm-hmm. So he's having these visions, and he needs to go north of the wall to figure out what they are. He doesn't have legs. He doesn't have the use of his legs, so he needs help. And so he's traveling with his younger brother Rickon, a wildling woman who they took prisoner named Osha, and the wonderful, wonderful Hodor. I love Hodor.
Yeah, and I'm interested in Hodor too because I was rereading book 1 recently and came upon this little throwaway bit of a line where Bran mentions that at one point old Nan said that Hodor's name is really Walder. Which, you know, when you're reading book 1, that doesn't mean anything. But once you've watched a little more and you find out about the twins and Walder Frey and how everybody there is named Walder, it obviously means something.
What?
But old Nan came to Winterfell like 5 generations ago.
Oh my god, you just blew my mind.
Right? This is something I just came across.
Oh my god!
This is why I love these books, you guys. This is why.
Wow. Well, I mean, I knew that Hodor wasn't his real name.
Right.
Like, because I think Bran mentions that at some point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Bran is saying, early in the books, he's saying, you know, he only says... Well, he only says Hodor, and Theon Greyjoy made a crack of like, he may not know much, but at least he knows his name.
And then Bran says, well, that's actually not his name.
Old Nan laughed and said his name's actually Walder, and we don't know where Hodor came from.
Wow.
So,
wow,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, my mind's just been blown.
But that's another interesting, not Hodor, but the Bran's journey to the wall is another interesting kind of departure so far from between the books and the show. Yeah. Because in the books...
Now, Temple is saying that
Temple.
Or I Stole the One Ring is saying Bran did see Jon.
Okay, he did see him.
Okay, that's okay. Fair enough.
So Bran knows that
and
Jon
he did mention
was
it to Rickon. Okay, yeah.
Jon doesn't know that Bran was there.
And yes, Sam and Gilly do meet up with Bran and his party at the wall.
Do they really?
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't happened in the series.
Yes, it has.
Oh yeah, it has. That's how it ended, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was right at the end. Forgot we got there.
Yep, we got there.
But yeah, that was the thing. Was in the books, Rickon and Osha leave and go elsewhere, and in the series they're still all together.
No.
I mean, now they've gone elsewhere.
Now they've gone elsewhere.
But they stayed together much longer.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I don't think they got this far north before splitting up.
But goodness knows what Rickon's story is going to be.
I don't know.
Almost
we were actually joking about this yesterday. Like, at the end of the 7th book, Rickon is going to come back as just like a big berserker and just destroy everybody.
This is my friend's theory, which I love, that he's going to come back like as a giant barbarian monster filled with rage. Because all we know is we have this little boy who's really angry.
Yeah.
And he's got a wolf who's also really angry and bites people. So, like, this little boy full of rage. And then they disappear and we don't see them again.
Yeah.
We're like, he's going to come back right at the end, this hulking barbarian with a gigantic wolf, and they're just going to lay waste to everything.
And you know what?
Amazing.
I think I'd be okay with that. You know, just so long as, like, after he's laid waste to everybody, he just, like, takes Daenerys to the Iron Throne and says, "Your chair, my lady."
I don't think he would say that. I think he's just not going to have the power of speech by the time he comes back.
Probably
he's
not.
He's just going to be grunting.
He's like, me, Rickon, smash!
Exactly. That's what I want to see.
Oh my
A
god.
spin-off of The Adventures of Rickon and Tom, and yes,
Yes.
Temple, I could get behind that too.
I could. Oh man, would that not be the best odd couple ever?
But yeah, Temple said, poor Rickon, he's the ignored Stark, and he is.
Yes.
But I keep wondering if that's
On purpose.
significant, if that's
Yeah.
important, because
Yeah.
he's going to end up having a much larger role to play later. Whether it be coming back as a berserker with a monster wolf or not.
Yeah. Which would be amazing.
Which would be amazing. But we also, in the books, we know that the place that Asha and Rickon were headed is putting them in the path of another major character who hasn't headed there in the series yet, so I'm not going to say who it is.
Yeah.
But I'm also interested to see where that bit is going.
Yeah. I'm definitely curious to see where that goes. So, and then also in season 4, we're going to be introduced to a couple new characters because so many have been killed off.
Right.
Like this
repopulate.
is the thing with Game of Thrones. Like there are so many character deaths that you need to replenish the ranks with other new characters.
And he has no problem doing that.
No, none whatsoever. And it's kind of refreshing, like knowing that at any moment your favorite character could die.
Mm-hmm. And we finally get to meet the Martells of Dorne, who
Yes.
we've been hearing about but haven't met yet.
Yes, and we will meet them in the form of Prince Oberyn, the Red Viper.
And his sand snakes.
Yes. That should be an interesting one because he is another guy who he has an agenda and it's vengeance.
Yes. Yes,
And
we've got the wedding of Marjorie and Tyrion to look forward to. Not Tyrion. Marjorie and Joffrey to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
And the continuing marriage adventures of Tyrion and Sansa, the happiest couple.
Yeah. I just feel so bad for Tyrion.
I do too.
Like, because this is clearly not something he wanted. He knows it's not something that Sansa wanted, and he's just trying to make the best of it. He's like, listen, I know I'm a Lannister and you hate me, but trust me, like, he really feels like he needs to earn her trust, and he's doing his damnedest to do it.
Yeah, and it's so bad because even having gone through what she went through with Joffrey, like, being married to someone like Tyrion for Sansa is like the ultimate betrayal of this fairy tale vision of what her future is going to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like if the book actually pursued the marriage far enough, she would probably learn that this was the best possible option for her right here.
It really was, but I mean...
But that's not where Sansa's headed.
No,
so
it's really not.
I mean, technically they're still married, so who knows.
I mean, I think like my favorite moment between them is like when Tyrion just like goes to sleep on the couch while she's in the bed, and he's like, I promise I will not touch you until you want me to, and she's like, well, what if I don't ever want you to? And he says, and so my watch begins.
So my watch begins.
And I'm like, you know what, Tyrion, you're all right.
Yeah, I love Tyrion. I hope he wins.
And Temple is saying, at the same time, Tyrion is far more princely in character than Joffrey.
Oh, so much. And that's the thing. It's like, that's what makes me kind of frustrated that they haven't done more with that marriage than they have.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I would like Sansa to realize that. That like,
I'm kind of hoping that she does. I mean, other things happen to Sansa that sort of, and other things happen to Tyrion that sort of puts a little bit of a split there.
It separates their journeys for a while, but hopefully that we'll get a chance to revisit that later.
Yeah, because I mean, technically there was no divorce, there was no annulment.
Nope.
Technically, they're still married.
Technically, they're still married.
Which could have far-reaching implications. So yeah, we're coming up on almost 2 hours now. So and we still we've only covered like part of what's going on in this series. There is so much. Like
if you haven't watched it, watch it.
I'm
if you
still
haven't
like
read it, read it.
I'm still just envious of people who can do a very concise Game of Thrones recap in under 10 minutes. I've seen it done. I'm like, I don't know how you do this because there is so much in this show. Like, this is...
I'm still thinking of all the plot lines and characters we didn't even touch on.
I know,
but I think
there's
we
so
got
many.
most of the major ones.
We got a lot of the major ones, but there are still so many that we weren't able to talk about. Like we weren't able to get too much into Mance Rayder. We weren't able to talk too much about Theon.
Right.
Um,
And Theon also has a very interesting character journey.
he does, which we're going to see more of in the series than we did in the books. Because in the books, he just disappears for 2 books
Mm-hmm.
and then comes back a totally different man.
In the series, which if you've watched season 3 or a summation of season 3, you kind of know.
Yeah.
We actually see what
We
he
see
goes through
what he goes through,
during that time.
and yeah, it's pretty awful. Yeah. But yeah,
just
like
in short, and Theon as a character
we
was the
have,
one that I was like, someone
yeah.
needs to set him on fire.
Yeah.
He needs to die. He's horrible.
Yeah.
And
now I'm like,
I was like, oh, that was worse than I actually would have wished on him, and now I feel sorry for him again.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't talked at all about Varys or Littlefinger.
Nope.
Yeah.
Or the Iron Islands.
Or the Iron. Well, you know what? Screw the Iron Islands. I never liked them.
Screw the Iron Islands.
No, seriously.
Haven't talked much about Stannis and Melisandre. We didn't
No.
talk about Brienne.
No.
There's so much you got.
There's so many characters, so many stories,
and if you
so many characters, and they're all wonderful. Like,
if you decide to listen to the audiobooks, just good luck.
Yeah, like you really do sort of have to power through it.
So if you've seen The Last Unicorn and you listen to the audiobooks, tell me if Ser Davos Seaworth does not sound like the drunken skeleton in The Last Unicorn movie to you, because he really sounds like that to me.
Oh man.
It's the pirate voice, but it's like the cartoon pirate voice.
I'm gonna have to listen to.
Yeah, he sounds exactly.
I'm gonna have to listen to it again. I'm gonna have to watch Last Unicorn again. Oh darn!
Oh no! What a tragedy.
Oh god, how my life! What a torture. So thank you, Eve, for coming and discussing Game of Thrones at length. And next week we will be talking Harry Potter
Yay.
again with Eve. And Jan has emailed me many notes for it. So I'll be trying to bring. I'll try to bring that in. And I Stole the One Ring is saying you don't love Brienne. I love Brienne. No. I absolutely love Brienne.
Everyone loves Brienne because she's awesome.
Yes. So next week we'll be doing Harry Potter. The weekend after that is WonderCon.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try to do a show during WonderCon. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that logistically, and I'm going to see if I can get many people from Torn to come by and do like a big group talk. So the WonderCon episode, if it happens, is going to be a very weird, bizarre thing on its own. And if you're at WonderCon, you're welcome to come too.
Oh, I'll be there.
Okay.
I'll be running around someplace.
All right, cool. So
we'll just run past in the background and be like, oh.
Yeah. So tomorrow, or so for next week, we'll have Harry Potter, which is going to be ridiculous. As chatty and as crazy as we are about Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, if you can believe it, is even worse.
But the plot and character recaps aren't quite as complicated.
No, that's true. That's very true. This has been like more informational than like emotional, really. Harry Potter's going to be way emotional.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So,
what is this Harry Potter you speak of?
I don't know. Never read it. Don't know anything about it. So again, there's no Rewrite Tolkien for this month, but the book of the month is The Strain by Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan, and I'll be posting links to that on the Facebook page and on Twitter, and I'll be posting archives of this episode once it goes up. And yeah, people are probably going to be showing up for the Game of Thrones viewing party here any minute now. So
and I have to go collect Suzanne.
Yeah, you have to go pick up Suzanne. Suzanne is probably watching this going, would you end already so you can get over here and pick me up?
I don't know. She said she's still working on buttons, so maybe she's glad we're taking a while.
Okay.
And we did end kind of earlier than I expected yesterday. So
we did, so I'll start a little bit later. Yeah, we're gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine. Like I don't want to.
Yeah, see, she's not ready yet.
Okay, I'm hoping that.
How long do you think, Suzanne?
I'm hoping that we'll be able to start a little bit later because I don't want us to end like at 7 and then have to wait 2 hours for the next episode.
Right. Although I'm sure we can fill 2 hours with talking.
Oh, we can.
I mean, we've just proven that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying.
Suzanne is saying she needs an hour.
So should I mean, you already got your buttons.
Yeah.
Brought them. So should I come get you after the first episode, or should we just try not to start? Well,
We'll start later. It's all fine. It's all fine. Don't worry, Suzanne. Like you know how to contact us. So when you're ready, you just let us know. So
Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor, and it can never be used to hurt you.
Tyrion. There has to be a book of the quotable Tyrion Lannister.
Yes. Also, I'm loyal to my beloved Joffrey. Right on my Everyone Hates Joffrey t-shirt.
So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Eve, for this wonderful discussion.
Thank you for having me back.
Of course,
Always fun.
you're always welcome here. And thank you for all your wonderful, lively discussions, Suzanne, Temple, Jan. I Stole the One Ring, Eva.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
So thank you all, and we will see you next week with Harry Potter. And
enjoy your Dark Knight Rises.
Enjoy your Dark Knight Rises, Jan, and remember everybody, never stop reading.
Yes, there is, isn't there?